At the Kennebec Valley Humane Society, we believe in creating a kinder community by nurturing the bond between animals and humans. Please join me in welcoming some furry friends.
Welcome back to Happy Tales at KVHS. I am here with a wonderful 3-year-old Rottweiler named Apollo. Apollo should be with older kids. We're gonna say teenagers and up. No cats. A female dog would be okay. Apollo's gonna need to learn some additional manners. He is a rough and tumble boy who can take you out if you're not holding on to him. Aren't you beautiful though? 120 pounds, strong, sweet. Apollo is looking for his forever home. This spunky little darling is Bailey. Now, Bailey is a 9-month-old mutt who does well with other dogs, perhaps cats, kids, people. She's a little apprehensive and shy when she first meets somebody, but she warms up. She can get a little bit nervous at unfamiliar sounds. She's actually been over to some of the assisted living and nursing home facilities and was caught off guard by some of the carts and the wheels that squeaked. So, good girl, Bailey. But she's sweet as can be, looking for her forever home. This sweet little kitty cat is Riot. She is 4 years old, very, very, very nice, curious gal, likes to people watch, likes treats, likes taking naps. Well, who doesn't? Riot is just the nicest little kitty you'll ever meet and looking for her forever home. This darling and friendly little fella is Sirius. Year old, spelled not like the satellite radio, but the Shirley, you can't be serious. He is just the nicest little fella here at KVHS, loves everybody, looking for a calm home, but happy as can be. Sirius is looking for his forever home. I am here with a wonderful bonded pair of guinea pig sisters named Moki and Loba. They were in foster care for a little while. Moki was having a cyst removed and was in the recovery phase. They just absolutely love being with their person and each other. They take naps, they feed on vegetable items, and they like popcorning to each other. That's what you hear when they're talking back and forth. Yes, these darling little guinea pigs are looking for their forever home. I'm honored to be joined today by Animal Control Officer Paul Fry of the Augusta Police Department. Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into law enforcement, and maybe some of the duties and responsibilities of an animal control officer.
Well, my history in Augusta goes back to 1992 when I started as a full-time patrol officer in the city of Augusta, and I worked that until July of 2018 when I retired from that, but then took over the position of animal control officer. So coming up on my 5th anniversary of doing that, basically in Augusta, animal control handles all the complaints dealing with domestic animals and livestock, and we will deal with wildlife if it's a public safety risk, like if there's a rabid animal or some sort of other risk to the public, but we don't trap and relocate. I get a lot of calls, people wanting me to trap skunks and woodchucks and whatever to get it off their property, and that's just simply something we don't do. But if there's a rabid skunk or a rabid raccoon or something, we would respond to that. But some of the other duties, I try to monitor the dog licensing in the city of Augusta and vaccinations for animals so that they can all be current. So there's just a bunch of different things that we do, and every day you just never know what's going to happen.
Sure. So what would you say is the most challenging part of the job?
Well, most challenging part of dealing with any domestic animals is usually the owners. But when it comes to, like, Augusta has a lot of stray cats, and we all know that stray cats, 10 stray cats this year becomes 30 or 40 stray cats next year. So I try really hard to respond to people telling me about strays, and I probably trap 50 plus cats a year, bringing them here to the shelter so they can be vaccinated, spayed, neutered, and adopted out. So that's a big part of what I do. Obviously, people don't understand this, but when an animal doesn't want to be caught, it's not going to get caught. None of us can run as fast as a dog or a cat, so I trap a lot of animals. I try to use inventive ways of catching dogs that are at large, mostly appealing to their sense of desire for treats. And so that's challenging to get them to come to you, but I've had some pretty good success, and the more I do it, the better I'm getting at it. But there's just a bunch of different things that always have to be done. Nothing is too burdensome, but it's just all of it together, it keeps you busy.
Right. If you had to make a general assessment, would you say that dogs are harder to apprehend, or cats, or other critters?
Other critters are actually very, I when I'm trapping cats and stuff, I often get wildlife because they just are looking for the free meal. Dogs are very difficult to catch, but I've had a lot more success with them. Cats, I generally just have to set a trap, walk away, because they are just obviously so fast, and they're usually very leery of humans if they're living out on the street. So dogs are a little bit more trusting, and you can have better success with that.
Have you had some experiences, though, stories that you can easily recall where dog or cat resisted apprehension, or that they subsequently escaped?
Oh yeah, I've had several that I've brought in here that have escaped inside this building, because when you go to transfer them to the cage, they have other plans, and I've had cats climbing right up the concrete wall because their claws are so sharp, and the only thing that stopped them from continuing to climb is they ran into the ceiling. They are very agile, but I haven't had any dogs get loose on me out in the community, but cats, if a trap malfunctions or whatever, I've had animals get into traps, and somehow, I don't know how, I come back and the trap is tripped, the food is eaten, but there's no cat in it. So I don't understand how that happens, but it's a mystery that I'll never solve. But
well, what's the most unusual animal that has made their way into the trap in lieu of the kitty?
The most unusual one I had was a full albino possum. I showed up, it was completely white, and I was a little taken back at it. The possums are, they like to go into the traps, and they look meaner than they are. As soon as you open it up, they want to get out of there. But the albino one was definitely the most unique animal. I've caught skunks, unfortunately. Those are more problematic to get out of the trap without being sprayed. Raccoons they're very damaging to the traps because they get in there and then they want out and they just destroy anything they can. But yeah, I get a lot of different animals. Groundhogs, I've had a bunch of those. But I try to work with people in the community now. I've come up with a better plan so that these traps get shut down in the middle of the night, because the cats that I'm looking for aren't generally moving around at that time. So I'd rather catch them during the day than catch the wildlife. And when it comes right down to it, I don't want anything sitting in the trap for an extended period of time, because it's less humane than we'd like to be. So I work with people. I've had to set up cameras before because I've had traps in places where nobody could monitor it, and I have a cell phone game cam that tells me when something gets in the trap so I can get it out of there as quick as possible.
Have you had some misguided folks that tried to domesticate either raccoons or skunks or deer or wolves or anything?
I have people who they definitely feed them. I don't know if they're trying to domesticate them or not, but what people don't understand is when you feed wildlife, you're not doing them any favors, because the animals need to learn how to be self-sufficient, because if you all of a sudden stop, now you have an animal out there that's reliant on humans for its existence, and when the human goes away, now that animal's really got a problem on their hands. So I have a lot of people who feed animals, but it can create more problems than they realize.
So for anybody that didn't catch the important message here, don't feed wildlife. Don't feed the wildlife. What would you say is the most rewarding part of your job?
Well, whenever you can take animals out of a situation where they're living in substandard conditions. Like this week, for example, we just finished up, I think the total was 17 dogs came out of a location here in Augusta. They were just not well cared for. The person that was there, I don't think was malicious in what they were doing. They were just out of their depth when it came to taking care of that many animals. So when I bring them in, and I noticed one the other day that was on the website from here that I had brought in from that location, and it had already been adopted out because the person that was at that location voluntarily surrendered them to us. So we immediately can, once they're spayed, neutered, and vaccinated, they can be sent out for adoption, and I really enjoy watching them find their new homes. A couple of months ago, I took a goat and another dog that were living in conditions that weren't ideal, and when I find out that the person that fostered the goat for us ended up keeping it, and it's living with other goats now, and it's after living for months and months and months of isolation, that's rewarding to take care of situations like that. So luckily there aren't a ton of them, but when they do arise, we try to get right on them and get the animals to where they're better off, safer, cleaner, more taken care of.
Right. So that's the flip side of the challenge, is that it is some of the most rewarding opportunities is to really do good in those situations. And I'm sure a lot of the people get in over their head. Many of them probably love animals and thought that they were doing a service by either, taking on something for which they weren't qualified or weren't equipped. What would you encourage then for members of the community with respect to reaching out for help if they do get in over their head? I'm sure some people are apprehensive because they either feel like they're going to get arrested or they feel like maybe their other, animals will be called into question as pets. What would you say to folks, I guess, that are in that predicament?
Well, what I try to do is I approach almost everything from the educational point of view. Lots of times people are doing things that aren't ideal because of lack of knowledge. So I try to work with people and try to get them to be in compliance on their own and show them why they need to be doing things like that. It's difficult with some people, just like you said, they think they're doing the right thing. When I was my first year on the job, I had a woman living in a rooming house, which was very tiny, and she had 4 dogs and 6 cats. And she just kept, people wanted to get rid of their animals because they were moving or whatever, and she just kept, oh, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it. The last thing, people like that need to be doing, you got to be honest with yourself about what you have for facilities. If you have tons of acreage and you want to take animals, you can probably pull off a lot more, but if you're living in an apartment, dogs, you might want to keep them on the small side, But it's challenging, to get people to realize what they should be doing sometimes. But we work with people. Taking the animals is always my last resort. Court paperwork is always my last resort. I have charged people with crimes. I've charged people civilly with animal cruelty, but that is the last resort. If I can get them to be responsible pet owners, that's always the ideal outcome.
And the Augusta Police Department has been a wonderful partner with KVHS for so long. You must be looking forward also to us going into a new shelter, a new facility, a new program.
Well, it's really, it's going to be an exciting year because you guys, we're going to get a new shelter. The police department's getting a new station. I'm getting a new van for my animal control vehicle, which is going to house all my equipment. And so when I get to a call, I don't have to go back to the station and get something. Everything's going to be with me. It's going to be a really good year for animal control in this area because, I mean, even with this older building that you have now, the amount of support that I get from the staff here at the shelter is far exceeding anything I could have expected when I took this job. The staff that work here are just, they're second to none. I can't even tell you how impressed I am with the people that work here. They never, no isn't their answer. They're always like, oh, let's figure out how we can make this work. And I, like this week when I had all those dogs that I was taking, I inundated you guys pretty well, but they worked with me as much as they could. We took some to other shelters, but we took as much as we could here, and it was it's always a pleasure to work with the people here. But like I said, it's going to be an exciting year. I cannot wait for you guys to get your new facility because it's going to give you so much more efficiency in doing your mission and space to do that in. And I drive by there frequently, and I'm anxious to see it to get to the finish line. But you'll get yours before we get ours, because ours is a little bit behind yours. But,
Yes, sir.
But it'll be a great year for this area. So I'm excited about that.
Have you had opportunity to work with some of the other ACOs? We represent 23 communities, KVHS. Not all of our folks have as much of a law enforcement background. Have you been able to either mentor or offer support to folks in some of the smaller towns and communities?
I've worked with a couple of different towns. The biggest challenge I find with the smaller towns is that they end up hiring people like on a part-time basis or a per diem type basis, which means that they all have to have other jobs. Whereas like if you call for animal control in Augusta and it's Monday through Friday during my working hours, I get the call and I take it. But if I'm not working, the patrol unit guys, they go out and handle the complaints, and I've talked to them about what I need from them, and then once I get back to work, I take over the complaint. I'm not sure that you get that kind of response in the other towns because they just don't have the manpower and their areas are much larger. But Augusta having a full-timer is definitely the exception for the area, but it's very much a benefit to the town. I mean, there's just so much more availability for me to help people out working a full-time position, whereas others are, like I said, they have to work their other jobs. So, but I have had a few that have come and asked me for help with things, and given my law enforcement background, you know, helping them through the court process, and I mean, just simple things like how to fill out a summons. If you've never done it, you wouldn't really know. And so I will do that for anybody that asks. But my time with others, because I work Monday through Friday during the day, is limited because, like I said, they all have their other jobs during that time. So when they're actually doing their animal control stuff, it's probably when I'm actually home. So, so I do see some, but not a lot.
Well, we appreciate so much what you folks do for our community and serving our community, not just the animals, but all of the police department. And I thank you for being here today, Paul. I've wanted to talk to you for a while. So this
Anytime.
Yeah,
Anytime.
no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching Happy Tales at KVHS. Please feel free to share this video, spread the word so that we can help more cats, dogs, mice, and otherwise find their forever home.